You know what I hate about Dungeon Master screens when you make them yourself? I'll show you. Is what most homemade Dungeon Master screens will end up looking like. I mean, they work, but they're not very stable. They'll blow over in a stiff wind. They just don't look that good. This is not what a Dungeon Master screen is supposed to look like. This is what a Dungeon Master screen is actually supposed to look like. Sturdy, thick cardboard screen. Now, nothing wrong with inserts. I use inserts. I happen to be particularly fond of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, so this is a custom screen I made for my own use. But there are some screens where you can't do that, and this is going to be one of them. So, we're going to do things a little differently. Rather than just make a flimsy two-sided cardstock file, we are going to actually make a proper Dungeon Master screen, or in this case, referee screen, or I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to call you in Basic Fantasy, because quite frankly, you're a Dungeon Master. It's what you are, and I don't care who owns the trademark. You're a Dungeon Master. So it's a Dungeon Master screen. And I'm going to show you how to make one out of proper chipboard. So let's get started. You are going to need a roll of tape. This is bookbinding tape. Best tape you could possibly ask for this job if you don't have bookbinding tape. Any thick, any wide tape will do. Gaffer's tape will work. Duct tape will work, although, gotta tell you, that's going to be pretty bulky. You could even use packing tape. Packing tape tends to get old and cracks and loses adhesion over time. But these aren't going to last forever. Well, this will. I'm 57 years old. This screen that I make with this will probably outlive me by a fairly substantial margin. If you use a lesser tape, it won't last as long. You could even use masking tape. It'll work. It won't work great, but it'll work. My recommendation, spring for the bookbinding tape. Can't use bookbinding tape. You can get something equally adhesive, a little clumsier and thicker, but gaffer's tape on online, and you can also get duct tape, whatever, packing tape, whatever. Anyway, you also need a good hobby knife with a nice sharp blade, steel straight edge, and you need 4 pieces of chipboard. You can use something thinner. These are fairly thick pieces of chipboard. If you want, you could even conceivably use something like cereal boxes cut out to 8.5 by 11. You can do that. I'm using this because it'll last a lot longer, and because, well, I can afford to buy good stuff. But anything's better than just using some flippity floppity card stuff. And of course, the last thing you're going to need is a copy of the screen that you're going to produce. So let's get started. I've tried to do this once before. I tried to make this video once before, and it came out far too long. So I'll try to be as brief as possible, and I'll try to skip through the parts that you don't need to see. Now, first thing we need to do is lay out our screen. Now, because this particular screen is laid out in landscape, it's going to be a little trickier than putting together the ones that lay out in portrait. Of course, why bother making the ones in portrait? Because those fit as inserts in most generic screens. So we're going to go ahead and cut a piece of tape. We're not going to be fancy about this. We're not looking to be perfect. We're going to be doing more cuts later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the first hinge here. And then once the first hinge is made, I'm going to move on. I'm going to make the other 2 hinges. You don't have to watch that. And then we'll move on to the next step. So, to make the first one. We're going to lay it out. This is going to be the Dungeon Master side, and the page is going to fold in like this. So we have our hobby knife, crafting knife, utility knife, whatever it is you want to use. Just make sure it has a nice new sharp blade on it, because you're going to be cutting through a chipboard. And, oh, that stuff eats up blades. Okay. I've only made one other board with this, so this should be fine. But if I have to take a break and change it halfway through, that's exactly what I'll do. So, I'll lay that out like that. One downside to using, one of the downsides to using this particular kind of tape is that it has a backing, which makes it a little trickier to use. Okay, we're going to lay that down right there. Oop. I'd like to be nice and straight. This is not a forgiving tape. You make a mistake, it's going to make you live with it, so try not to make a mistake. Okay. To get any air in there. You'll see the bulges. You may not see the individual wrinkles, but you'll see the bulges from the other side if you do. Okay, so there's our first. There's the inside of our first hinge. Now we're going to fold it over. We're going to take a second piece of tape and we're going to lay it on. I've tried 100 different shortcuts for this. There isn't one. You just have to do it and be careful. Okay. Oh, fun, fun, fun. As you get older, you lose fingers, and you grow new thumbs. There we go. Like so. I'm having a little trouble eyeballing this. Right about there, I think. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Good. Now we're going to turn it over, and very carefully, because we don't want bubbles and bulges. Flip that over. Like that. Good. Okay, let's clean this desk off. There's our first hinge. Just to refresh what we've just done. Chop the tape off the top and bottom, just to make it easier to work with. One. And two. We're going to be cutting a little more off the top and bottom later, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So just to refresh your memory, we laid it down in front of us, the M side facing us, the side that we're going to fold in. We just laid a piece of tape flat across the top, then we folded it. We laid a second piece across the top here. That completes our first hinge. We're going to do that 2 more times, and we're going to connect all four of these pieces of chipboard together. This is something that you have no need or desire to watch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. All 4 panels taped together. We can't do a centerfold yet. We'll get around to that. But first things first, we're going to apply some stickers. We're going to apply the labeling paper with our screen on it. We're going to start on the ends. Okay, we're going to do the left and the right side, and then we'll do the center. So, starting on the left side, you want to orient all your pages in the same way, facing basically the same direction. So which is what I like to do, is orient them across the bottom. It just makes my life easier. If you prefer to orient them across the top, you do that. Do it whichever way you like. Do it slowly and carefully because this paper is merciless. And it will make you work very hard. So orient it along the bottom. Right there. Right there. Good. Slowly and carefully. More slowly and carefully than I'm doing, that's for sure. There we go. Just lay it out. Got a kink in here. Let's see if I can get that out. Good, good, just like that. Wow, that's hideous, you say. Yes, yes it is, I say. Don't worry, we'll get around to fixing it, okay? Don't worry, it'll all look very slick and sleek by the time we're done. Now we're going to do the inside page. And then I'll show you why we're doing this. So here's the inside page. I think this is the one. Yes, this is prices and stuff. I have to turn the air off when I'm filming, and it gets hot up here really fast, so I might take a break soon. There we go. Just like that. There's two. Now we're going to do this side, the far side, which means we're going to the last illustration in my pile, which you'll probably recognize. It's an old Dungeons and Dragons, old school Dungeons and Dragons print, particularly famous one. And this will be the Dungeon Master's side. So bada boom. Get it along the bottom. There we go. So. Easy. Try and get all the air out. Good. Okay, now we'll do the DM side. Now the reason we're doing this is so that we can tidy up the both ends so this will fold properly. It's a lot easier to work with it, the rest of it, if we are able to fold it up. So we're going to lay this sheet in right here. Just like that. Try and get all the air out. Make it nice and flat. Good. Now, in order to actually fold this thing properly, we need to take the ends off. So, starting on this side, we're going to take off about 1/8 of an inch. Okay. here. We're going to measure. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be straight. We're going to take off about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, right about here. Don't try to cut through the whole thing. Don't even. It won't. You're just going to wind up making a mess and breaking your blades. And it's not going to be a clean cut. It's going to be a raggedy cut. You don't want a raggedy cut. Start to make. There we go. I think that one went all the way through. Okay. The reason we do that is so now this will fold. First of all, it looks a lot better, but that will fold. And now we can fold it all the way over. And we're going to take a 1/4 inch off of this side. And 1/4 inch. An eighth of an inch is more than enough. Okay. Right there. You know what? There are people who are skilled enough with a crafting blade to do stuff like that. I am not one of them. There we go. Let's just do it this way. So bring that all the way over to 24 inches. Take off between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be straight. Okay. Huh, feels like it's cut all the way through. No, definitely not. Okay, I think that got it. Okay. Now, we're going to do the center panels exactly the same way. And no, you do not have to watch that part. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off. I'm going to do the center panels exactly the same way. See, nice fold. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the finishing touches, because I realize that right now it looks absolutely hideous. And the object of the game here is to make it look awesome. So that's what we're going to do. Okay? Back in 10 minutes, 15 maybe. And here we are. Okay, we've copied our screen onto 8.5 by 11 labeling paper and pasted each piece onto its screen. And yeah, you're right, it looks awful. And that is why this one last sheet that everyone gives me a hard time about. What is that? What is it? There's this thing on the what? This is the tape. Okay, this is what we're going to use to clean up these ugly seams. So let's get started on that. And yes, by the way, they do appear on both sides. So yes, we're gonna go ahead and cover those seams up. So let's get started on that. I'll do the first couple, and then you can I'll put you on pause and go ahead and just start another one. So we're gonna go ahead and cut a piece of tape. 3/4 of an inch should be quite sufficient. I'm going to cut this little edge off first though, because I'm using cheap label paper. It doesn't go all the way to the edge, so I'll have a hard time getting a decent measurement. So, Just as long as that's off, that's all that matters. So we'll cut this down to up there. Good. About there. Now, again, we are going to keep this folded and place it on there, folded. Like so. Like that. Good. And then we're going to fold it over. Take it easy, do it slow. If you try to do it quickly, you're going to wind up with unsightly bumps. And it's very easy not to get those. Just go slow. There we go. And one unsightly seam has been removed. Okay? Now, let me show you my Dungeon Masters screen for D&D, Advanced D&D. You'll notice that I have thoroughly taped the player's side. Okay? I have not taped the Dungeon Master's side. Okay? I don't care. Okay? I just need to be able to see the tables. I'm not concerned at all with making it pretty. So I didn't even bother to do this next step, and you don't either. But a lot of people do like things to be pretty. And if you're one of those people, that's what the other side of the tape is for. So we're going to do the same thing. If you want to cut it to a full inch, that's fine too. There's plenty of paper for an inch. And it's easier. It's easier to do. And there's clearly 1 inch margins here to place them in. So, you know, if you prefer to do an inch, do an inch. Okay? So there we go. I'm going to cut that again. That's not clean. I cut right along the edge of the adhesive. Uh-oh, I'm starting to feel a grind. That could mean that my blade is about to poop the bed. Okay. Probably have to change it before we move on to the next step. So we're going to move on. We're going to cut this to about 3/4 of an inch. I'm not going to make it perfect because I didn't just cut a perfect edge. And I don't care because it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be good. Good is good enough. There we go. Bingo. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to tape this inside seam here. And now you know why I have these weird pages hanging off the edge of all my craftable screens. It's so that you can use them to tape the screens and it looks better than Scotch tape or masking tape or packing tape or whatever the type of tape it is you normally use. Okay, and there you go. We got a nice clean seam on the inside, a nice clean seam on the outside. It is completely foldable. We use really high quality tape. This screen will last through regular use 4 years. I'm going to do the other 3 or the other 2 hinges, and then we'll show you how to finish this thing off. Okay? Oof. Okay, we're back. So, kind of got my butt hanging out here, but I've been placing tape. I got the whole thing taped up. So now it's time to finish this thing. And the last part, See, all taped up on the inside. All taped up on the outside. No ugly tape showing. So now, the last thing we need to do is cut the margins off the top and the bottom to give it that professional, slick look. And for that, you need a nice clean blade, which I didn't do while I had the camera off. Sorry about that. Got the light cord hanging in front of my equipment box. Probably should use that as a utility knife now I think about it. What's the blade on that? It's pretty good. Alright, we'll use the utility knife. It's better for this particular job anyway. Do I have blades if I need them? Yeah, I do. Okay. I got the light cord tangled up in front of my equipment box. That is not a safe thing to have done. Okay, so let me wrap this up in paper and put it in the trash. No, that's not going to do. I have nothing to put it in. I have to cut a piece of tape. So, the most important cut here is the bottom, across the bottom, because that's the part that's going to be against the table. So that has to be a nice clean cut, and we're going to do that by making a nice straight square here. I don't think we need to take off much, frankly. I think about 1/4 of an inch off this bottom margin should do. So I'm going to lay my straight edge. Okay, I'm doing this backwards. I want to do the bottom edge first. Draw a nice square along this edge. Okay, I need to push this over to about here. Should give me a good cut. So it looks like I'm taking off a lot off the other side. I don't want it to be lopsided. You know what? It's because I got one piece down here that's a little too far down. Yeah, I think this is actually a good place to cut. So right about there. Good. Again, even with a big fat utility knife, this is not a cut that you want to try to make in one fell swoop. It will not work. Just be patient. I'm not sure about this blade. It might be too dull. Oh, the cut seems clean. We'll keep going. Okay, there's your bottom cut. That ugly bottom margin is now gone. Sits nice and level on the table. We're going to do the same thing on the top. Personally, I prefer portrait screens. I think we'll have to take off a full 1/4 inch at the top. It's just the paper doesn't go up that high, so that's what we're going to do. Take off almost a full 1/4 inch at the top. But for some reason, this designer seemed, and it's like a beautiful screen. This is, by the way, a beautiful screen. The charts and tables are beautifully organized. Like a lot of OSR games, you don't need a lot of charts and tables. Basic Fantasy has taken the best of modern design elements and incorporated it into a system which is very consistent with the old Moldvay red box Dungeons and Dragons style of gaming. And the result is absolutely magnificent. This is a wonderful game. It's not table heavy. There are no, unlike the original Dungeons and Dragons, there are no combat matrices. So that leaves a lot of room on the screen for other information. It does not use descending armor classes. There's a whole lot of OSR snobs out there who find that absolutely not. That is not an OSR game if it doesn't have descending armor class, because it's not true to the wargaming origins of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, okay, that's true, but I'm sorry, that in and of itself is not enough to not make it an OSR game. This game feels like old school Dungeons and Dragons. It just plays like old school Dungeons and Dragons. And yeah, maybe a little smoother because it doesn't have descending armor class. The descending armor class thing actually comes from naval wargaming. It's an old tradition where the larger a target is, the easier it is to hit. So a large target would be armor class 10 because it's huge, right? And a small target would be armor class 1 because it's tiny. So it's harder to hit. Well, I mean, that's a great tradition for naval wargaming, but let's face it, it never really worked well in Dungeons and Dragons. So the idea of having just an armor class with a level bonus, and you compare the two, and if you roll higher, you get, that's just good game design. Sorry, guys. It doesn't mean that it can't be OSR. So here's our finished screen. Okay, there's a few little bits and pieces that might need to be shaved off, but as you can see, it's got all of the, it's as good looking and as firm as anything you'd buy in a store. It'll last almost forever. The only way to make a better screen would be to take this, lay it out on a single piece of cardboard, and fold that single piece of cardboard. And there are companies that will do that for you. Obviously, that's not something you can do on your home printer. But you could buy an entire new game system for the amount of money it's going to cost you to make a screen that way. My recommendation is just make yourself a nice screen if you want one. And that's it. One final word before I go, because I'm actually enjoying this whole YouTube thing, so I think I'm going to make a go of it. Here's what we're going to do. If you've been watching my videos until now, you've got to have picked up on I love old games. Old games, like old games. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 1978. That's before most of the people who use YouTube were born. And I loved it, and I've been playing it ever since. But I really don't like the newer games. Newer games are all about storytelling. Meh. Okay, I can tell a story. If I want to tell a story, I'll write a book. I might just do that someday. But that's not what role-playing games are about. I'm not a storyteller. I'm a dungeon master. There's a difference. Storytellers tell stories. Dungeon masters provide epic fantasy settings so that a bunch of his friends, players, can come over and write their own stories. And that is what I do. I'm a dungeon master. I'm not a storyteller. I'm not a referee. I'm not a game master. I'm a dungeon master. That's what I do. Even when I play sci-fi games, I'm still being a dungeon master. That's my job. So I don't like the newer games. The whole interactive storytelling thing, I mean, that's fine. I'm glad a lot of people are really enjoying it. Great, go for it. But the whole thing where all the characters are superheroes and nobody ever dies, and yeah, no, sorry, I got no interest in playing those games. So I'm going to start my own channel. I haven't decided what I'm going to call it yet. Maybe, I mean, it'll be this channel, but maybe we'll just change the name from Kenny Marshall to Grumpy Old Gamer. That sounds good, right? That fits. And what we'll do is we'll talk about old games because that's my interest. Games where you are not a superhero, games where you are not the chosen one, games where you are not the dragonborn, games where there are no tieflings or celestials or Arakokra. There are no flying player characters. Okay, um, we'll play old school. Now I realize a lot of the old school stuff is not available. Most of it is now, though. So we will talk about first and second edition Dungeons and Dragons, but we'll also talk about some of the things that have come out of it. Maybe I think I'd like to make my first video about Osric, which was the first retro game I ever really started playing, and I loved it. I still love it. Osric is an amazing game. Things like Basic Fantasy, White Box, Swords and Wizardry. There's a lot of great modernized versions of old school role playing games. There's even the whole term for it. You probably knew it before I did. The whole OSR term. I'm big on that. There's some great stuff because I mean I don't play pure first edition D&D. I don't play pure Osric. I don't play pure basic fantasy. I incorporate concepts from modern games into it. I just don't like the modern games. So I will play Osric, but I have the inspiration points. I use those. They're great. It's a good idea. And by the way, for all you 5th edition people who like worship the feet of that huge monolithic corporation called Wizards of the Coast that you seem to think actually loves you, uh, they did not invent that. The first time I saw it was way back in the early 80s with a game called Top Secret. It had something called Fortune Points. D6 Star Wars, about the same time, early 80s. Also came up with a game mechanic they call Force Points, which is basically the same thing. So they did not come up with inspiration points. They did not come up with advantage and disadvantage. That's another rule I've adopted. They did come up with spell slots. I like spell slots. I have incorporated that into my old school role playing. A lot of people are mad at me about that. Oh, you can't do that and still call it old school role playing, but those same people are like, you can't use Ascending Armor class and call it, I don't care. If you don't want to call it old school role playing, don't. I don't care. I really don't care about labels. I really am about having fun, but I am not about giving you an immortal character that is never going to die so that you can finish your backstory, right? That's not going to happen. If you do something stupid in my campaign, you're going to die. And no, you're not going to find out what happened in your backstory, and I'm not going to integrate your backstory into the plot, and you're not going to become a main character because characters die. And if you're the main character and you die, it's the end of the campaign. So shit's not happening in my game. I provide you with a setting and danger, and your job is to evade the danger, accumulate wealth, and try to make your own story. And if that includes working on your backstory, that's fine. But don't expect me to incorporate it into the official game. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make you the Dragonborn. I'm not going to make you the Chosen One. It's not going to happen because if you die, the campaign dies. And you're very likely going to die. Very few people in my campaign make it to high level. Maybe one character in 6 gets up to 10th level. The rest of y'all are going to die. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're gonna do all the stuff you're supposed to do to get a YouTube channel off the ground. We're going to set up a new Twitter account. I have a Twitter account, but y'all want nothing to do with it because, quite frankly, I am a grumpy old gamer and I'm very into politics. So my current account is very political, and you do not want to see it because if you are a Republican, you are going to hate my guts, and if you are a Democrat, you are going to hate my guts even more. And that doesn't leave a very big audience, okay? So I'm going to depoliticize. I'm going to create a Twitter account, maybe a Facebook account, do the whole social media thing. But mostly I'm just going to make YouTube videos. And those of you who want to, I would love to see you regularly. Like I said, the first video is going to be about Osric. I'm not a crafter. I'm not going to do this kind of how to do stuff. I've gotten some people asking me to do that. I don't want to do that. But I do want to keep talking to y'all. So and I'm going to do a giveaway. Right? That's the real thing we're going to do here is a giveaway. So we're going to get us up to 100 subscribers. Well, we're going to try to get us up to if we can get us up to 100 subscribers. I'm going to pick one of y'all, and I'm going to give away a copy of the Dungeons and Dragons Rule Cyclopedia. Now, one of the games we're going to talk about in the not too distant future is Beck Me. Yes, I said Beck Me. Deal with it. It's the basic expert, companion, master, immortal role-playing version of D&D. It's what we used to call the basic edition, which is really not fair because it's not really all that basic. This here's 300 pages. Now, this here includes all 5 of those books. Plus, it includes all the specialized rules from all the gazetteers. If you're familiar with the system, they put out a lot of setting gazetteers, which included lots of little specific rules. Like if you're an orc, these are the specific rules for orcs. If you're an elf, this is the specific rules for elves. Different regions, different kingdoms, all had their own little nitpicky little rules. And the thing was, if you bought all the gazetteers, those rules conflicted with each other sometimes, a lot. So the Rules Cyclopedia, one of the things it tried to do is take all of those rules, combine them into a single cohesive rule set. They got rid of most of those contradictions. It actually this is a wonderful rule set, but 90% of the rules in it are optional. Like 90% of the rules in it you're not going to use. You don't have to use. So it's a wonderful system. It is a hefty read. It is 300 pages. Skip the optional stuff to get started with, but this is a wonderful book. This is the book I keep next to much to my wife's chagrin. This is the book I keep next to my bedstand, so that when I'm tired, when I can't quite sleep and I'm tired, I just whip this out, read 10, 15 pages, and then I roll over and go to sleep. This is my booksturbation book, okay? And I'm going to give one away when we can hit 100 subscribers. Well, I should say, if we can hit 100 subscribers. And I'm thinking maybe if you are leaving a comment, maybe we'll give you an extra chance at it. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching my screen making video. I don't know what to call it, tutorial. But I won't be making a lot of tutorials because this is not what I do. I'm not a crafty person. I'm a role-playing. I'm a dungeon master. That's what I do. So come on back. Next time I hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and then when I make another video, come on back, and we're going to talk about Osric. I will still drop free stuff. One of the parts of being a dungeon master is I make a lot of stuff. I've got a ton of screens. I will release them all. I just want to clean them up a little before I release them. So yeah, I'm going to release them kind of one at a time. But I will continue to release free stuff. So keep an eye out for the videos. I will drop free Dungeon Master screens, free maps, free characters. I will continue to drop free stuff as it goes. But mostly we're just going to talk about old school role-playing games. And Osric is next on the list. Peace out, as we used to say in the old days.